everybody, it's crabedh here, and today we have an extremely good, extremely fun Shattergang Brothers sacrifice-themed EDH deck, which will only cost you $35. Not $50, not $40, but $35. And this deck's very good. So let's get into it. Shattergang Brothers is a 1 black, red, green, legendary 3/3 Goblin Artificer, and it costs 2 and a black, and we can, it costs 1 black, red, green, and we can pay 2 and a black and sacrifice a creature for each other player to sacrifice a creature, and we can pay 2 and a red and sacrifice an artifact for each other player to sacrifice an artifact. We can pay 2 and a green and sacrifice an enchantment for each other player to sacrifice an enchantment. So what this deck wants to do is we want to be very oppressive and make our opponents sacrifice all their good things, and then swoop in with, like, draining all our opponents and kind of, like, beating them with tokens. It's just overall very, very good. It can kind of win out of nowhere, and it can be very underestimated. So let's get into it. For ramp, we've got Rampant Growth, who searches our library for any basic land and puts it into play tapped. Cultivate searches our library for 2 basics, puts one of them into the battlefield tapped and the other into our hand. It can ramp us as well as fix us. Hero, same thing. It can ramp us and fix our mana by sacrificing a land and searching our library for 2 basics and putting it into play untapped. Charcoal Diamond enters tapped and taps for a black. Fire Diamond enters tapped and taps for a red. Guardian Idol enters tapped and taps for a colorless, but we can pay 2 for it to become a 2/2 until end of turn. Moss Diamond enters tapped and taps for a green, and Prismatic Lens with taps for a colorless, and we can pay 1 to tap it to filter our mana. Then for creatures, we've got Disciple of the Vault. Whenever an artifact is put into graveyard for play, we may have target opponent lose 1 life. So this is some of the draining. Whenever we sacrifice an artifact with Shattergang Brothers' second ability, we can just drain our opponents. Mirror Retriever. When it dies, return the target artifact card from our graveyard to our hand. So we can sack this with Shattergang Brothers, and we can return a previous artifact we sacrificed from our graveyard to our hand. Putrid Goblin. It can be sacrificed twice because it has Persist. It's a 2/2, and when it dies, we return it to the battlefield with a -1/-1 counter on it. So we can sacrifice it twice, make our opponent sacrifice 2 creatures. It's pretty good. Reassembling Skeleton. We can pay 1 in the black to return it from our graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So we can keep on sacrificing this over and over and over again, and it's extremely annoying because we keep on getting it back, and we keep on sacrificing it, and it's just not fun for their opponents because they keep on having to sacrifice their creatures. Catacomb Sifter. When it enters the battlefield, we create a 1/1 Scion Eldrazi that can be sacrificed for a colorless, and whenever another creature we control dies, we scry 1, so we get to scry a lot, and we get another creature that we can sacrifice with Shattergang Brothers for the price of 1 creature. So it's pretty nice. Cathodion, when it dies, we add triple colorless, so it can ramp us, and we can sacrifice it as either an artifact or a creature, and it gives us 3 mana, so it's pretty nice. Filigree Familiar, another artifact creature that we can sacrifice as an artifact or a creature, and when it enters the battlefield, we gain 2 life, and when it dies, draw a card, so it's a nice creature that can be sacrificed. Grim Haruspex, when another non-token creature you control dies, draw a card, so whenever we sacrifice our creatures, we draw a card. Pretty nice. Mayhem Devil, more draining. Whenever a player sacrifices a permanent, Mayhem Devil deals 1 damage to any target, so whenever we sacrifice something with Shattergang Brothers, we get to ping something. Plaguecrafter. When it enters, each player sacrifices a creature or planeswalker, and each player who can't discards a card. So what we can do is we can play Plaguecrafter, and in response to its ETB ability, we can sacrifice it with Shattergang Brothers, which causes our opponents to have to sacrifice an additional creature. So we play Plaguecrafter, it triggers. In response, we activate Shattergang Brothers, sacrifice Plaguecrafter, have our opponents all sacrifice a creature, then Plaguecrafter's ability resolves, causing our opponents to sacrifice another creature. Just kind of mean. Scrapyard Recompiler. We can tap in, sacrifice an artifact to search our library for a construct and put it into our hand. We have a nice construct Mere Battlesphere that we can tutor, and it has modular too. So when it dies, we can put 2+1/+1 counters on an artifact creature we control. Sprouting Flanax. When it dies, we create 3 saplings. So it's nice because we can sacrifice it and get 3 more creatures. Erasta, whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery, we get a nice 1/2 with reach. So we can sacrifice these 1/2s and we can eventually hit our opponents to death with them. Murderous Red Cap, when it enters, it deals damage equal to its power to any target, and it has persist, so we can deal a little bit of damage to something, and we can sacrifice it twice. Some Simulacrum, another nice card that can be sacrificed, because when it enters, we search a library for a basic land, and when it dies, we draw a card. Marionette Master, Fabricate 3, when it enters, we choose to either put 3+1/+1 counters on it, making it a 4/6, or create 3 1/1 servos. And whenever an artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may have target opponent lose life equal to Marionette Master's power. So we can choose for her to be big and have target opponent loses 4 life every time we sacrifice an artifact, or we can create 3 1/1 servos that we can sacrifice with Shattergang Brothers, and each time we sacrifice one of those servos, Marionette Master deals 1 damage to an opponent. So it's very nice. It's just good in this deck, especially. Butcher Valkyr, when it or another creature you control dies, each opponent sacrifices a creature. So it's basically just doing double Shattergang Brothers. So whenever we sacrifice a creature, our opponents have to sacrifice the creature from Shattergang Brothers and another creature from Butcher Valkyr. It's just nasty. Mirror Battlesphere, when it enters, we create 4 1/1 mirror artifact creature tokens. And whenever it attacks, we can tap X, untap mirror we control to give it +X+0 until end of turn and have it deal X damage to any target. Or not any target, or the defending player. So it's just a big, nice ball of mirrors. And it can just go in for a lot of damage, and we can sacrifice those mirrors with Shattergang Brothers to make our opponents sacrifice a ton of creatures. Then we've got Sandstone Oracle, which draws cards equal to the difference from our cards and target opponent's cards. So it's a nice 4/4 flyer that we can draw a bunch of cards from. Bowshrine Golem 6/7, we can pay 3 in a red and sacrifice an artifact to deal damage equal to that artifact's CMC to any target. So it's pretty nice because we can just sacrifice our artifacts, just fling it around, and just beat our opponents with a 6/7 Trampler. Pretty nice. Phyrexian Intruder form, when it dies, you get 3/3 colorless golem creature tokens. And it has Encore for 12, so it can create us a bunch of tokens that we can sacrifice. And it's a huge creature. And it's just an awesome card. Metalwork Colossus costs X less, where X is the total converted mana cost of non-creature artifacts we control. Metalwork Colossus is going to be very cheap, like 3 mana. So, 3 mana 10/10, sign me up. Then we got some spells. Artifact Mutation, destroy an artifact, it can't be regenerated. And we create X 1/1 green sapling creature tokens, where X is that artifact CMC. I really recommend this card in any deck that has red and green. It's very nice. And also it creates us a bunch of nice little 1/1s that we can sacrifice with Shattergang Brothers while destroying one of our opponent's artifacts. Dragon Fodder and Kratos Man both create 2 1/1 red goblins that we can sacrifice. Regrowth either returns an important piece that was killed from our graveyard to our hand, or we can return something we sacrificed from our graveyard to our hand that we can recast. Hordeling Outburst gets 3 more goblins that we can sacrifice. Diabolic Tutor, nice little tutor, which can search our library for the right card in the right situation. Faded Intervention, create 2 3/3 green center creature enchantment creature tokens. So they're enchantment creatures, meaning we can sacrifice them as creatures or enchantments, and if it's our turn, we scrap 2. Still can do, it's pretty good. Scrap Mastery, which replaces each player's artifacts in the graveyard with the artifacts they control. So it swaps out all of our artifacts that we sacrificed. Let's say we sacrificed almost all of our artifacts, we can get them all back and re-sacrifice them. So it's pretty nice. Skittering Invasion, it creates 5/0/1 Eldrazi Spawn creature tokens, which have sacrificed this creature to add a colorless to your mana pool. So it can either ramp us much and help us cast some of those big spells, or it creates a bunch of bodies that we can sacrifice with Shattergang Brothers. Then artifacts, we've got Horizon Spellbomb. When it dies, we can pay a green. If we do, draw a card. So we can sacrifice them with Shattergang Brothers, and then we can pay a green to draw a card. Pretty nice. Implement of Combustion. When it dies, you draw a card. Same thing. Nihil Spellbomb and Panic Spellbomb. Both are similar to Nihil Horizon Spellbomb. which draw a card when it dies. Golden Egg, when it enters, we draw a card, and we can sacrifice it with the Shattergang Brothers. Echo Wellspring, when it enters or dies, we draw a card. So we've basically drawn 2 cards for 2 mana when we sacrifice it with a Shattergang Brothers, so it's pretty nice. Liquid Metal Coating, we can tap it to make target artifact an artifact in addition to its other types until end of turn. So if our opponents don't have any, one of our opponents doesn't have any artifacts, then we can force one of their opponents to become an artifact, and we can activate Shattergang Brothers for them to forcefully sacrifice the permanent that we made an artifact, and it's probably going to be really good. Then we got Michael Synth Wellspring. When it enters or dies, we search our library for a basic and put it into our hand, so it's similar to Ichor Wellspring. Sarpadian Empires, we can pay 3 and tap it to create a 1/1 creature token, so it creates bodies that we can sacrifice with Shattergang Brothers. Then we have Trading Post, which we can pay 1 and tap it, discard a card to gain 4 life, 1 and tap it, pay 1 life, and create a 0/1 goat. Pay 1, tap it, sacrifice a creature, return target artifact card from our river to our hand. 1 and tap it, sacrifice an artifact to draw a card. So, it's very versatile. We can create bodies to sacrifice with Shattergang. It can get us life, it can return artifacts from our graveyard to our hand, and it can draw us cards. Pretty nice. Ugin's Nexus, when it dies, we exile it and get an extra turn. So we can sacrifice it with Shattergang Brothers and get another extra turn. Very insane. God-Pharaoh's Statue, spells your opponent's cost 2 more to cast. At the beginning of your end step, each opponent loses 1 life. So, pretty oppressive, very mean. Spine of Ishtar, when it enters, we destroy a permanent, and when it dies, we return it to our hand, so we can recurringly sacrifice this with Shattergang Brothers and keep on destroying our opponent's permanents. Very nice. Enchantments, we've got Rancor, which when it dies, we return it to our hand, so we can recurringly sacrifice this enchantment. Vampiric Rites, you can pay 1 in the black and sacrifice a creature to gain a life and draw a card. So it's a small enchantment we can sacrifice, and it can sacrifice creatures for card advantage. Bastion of Remembrance, when it enters, we create a 1/1 soldier token, and whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses their life and we gain 1 life, so more draining. Fecundity, whenever a creature dies, that creature's controller may draw a card, so it's a little chaotic, kind of making everyone draw a card whenever they're forced to sacrifice it with Shattergang Brothers. It's just fun. Destructive Flow, that's when each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices a non-basic land, so what we can do is we can play it, wait for each other player to sacrifice a non-basic land, and then before it gets to us, we sacrifice it with Shattergang Brothers. Pretty nice. Golgari Germination, whenever a non-token creature you control dies, create a 1/1 sapperling, so whenever we sacrifice it, a creature, we get another creature that we can sacrifice again. Pretty nice. Treacherous Blessing, when it enters, we draw 3 cards. Whenever we cast a spell, we lose a life. And whenever it becomes the target of a spell or ability, sacrifice it. So we can play it, draw 3 cards, and then immediately sacrifice it. So we don't get any of those downsides. Death Reap Ritual, at the beginning of each end step, if a creature died this turn, we draw a card. So whenever we're benefiting for when we sacrifice our creatures. Moldaround Reclamation, very similar. Whenever a creature you control dies, gain a life and draw a card. Pretty nice. Eldest Reborn. 1. Each opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker. More sacrificing. 2. Each opponent discards a card. And 3. Put target creature or planeswalker from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So with all the creatures that our opponents are sacrificing, they're bound to sacrifice something good. And we're going to get that if Eldest Reborn survives till 3 lore counters. Then for the mana base, we've got Bloodfell Caves. Enters tap and gains us a life, but taps for black or red. Jungle Hollow, enters tapped. When it enters, we gain a life, and taps for black or green. Rugged Highlands, enters tapped. When it enters, we gain a life, and we can tap it for red or green. Temple of Abandon, and it enters tapped. And when it enters, we scry 1, and it taps for red or green. Pretty nice. We've got Temple of Malice, enters tapped. When it enters battlefield, we scry 1, and it taps for black or red. So pretty nice. Then we're running 10 forests, 10 mountains, and 10 swamps. And don't forget to subscribe, like, share, comment, and I will see you next time.